University and the School for the Future of Innovation in Society. Kiki's research interests center on the rigorous empirical study of the process of conservation, exploring marine conservation, bycatch, fisheries, conservation technology, tidal energy, and more. Her research includes field studies along the southeast and west coast of the United States, along the Gulf of Mexico, in Ecuador, and in Costa Rica. Kiki is currently expanding her research into the role of science dance in education, science communication, and social change.
Okay, great. And with that, we'll go into our first panelist today, Dr. Kiki Jenkins. And if you want to share your screen, we'll let you know if we can see it.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, and good to see everyone's here on a Sunday afternoon. So I think we're good there.
Good.
Really quickly, you just got a sense of my general career journey through that introduction. So what I'll talk about is my career journey through the lens of a Black woman in marine science, and then also that process of branding and getting my name out there. So when I was at UMBC, I was a Meyerhoff Scholar. I'm curious if there's any Meyerhoff Scholars in the audience. If so, give a shout out in the chat. And having come from an all-female public school into one of the most prestigious programs and most successful programs in producing Black people with PhDs, I really came from a place of strength, of knowing that my voice counted. And so I wasn't afraid to put my voice out there. Going into Duke, which was a very different, predominantly white institution, I was the first Black woman to get a PhD in marine science from Duke University. It was a very different space. And I was at a small marine lab. So it was very isolated from what was happening in the main campus. It was just a small group of folks. So when I came out of my PhD program, I felt like I needed to be out there, not just so people knew about me, but so I could learn what was happening all around me. I felt like I'd been in a bubble getting this PhD. I was curious about what sector would make the most sense for the change I wanted to see in the world, because I was in this game to make change. So I spent some time at NRDC, the Natural Resources Defense Council, as a consultant there, seeing if the NGO world worked for me. I then moved to a AAAS fellow to see if government would work for me. It was in that stage that I really started putting out that brand. I mean, DC is all about that. DC is all about networking. You kind of can't help to be swept up into it. And I wanted to make change. I wanted the results of the research that I had done to be out there to the people who could use it. And so that was my focus. I began to focus with what audience I wanted to get to. And I have to admit that when it started, it was a little kind of like ad hoc. I just went to like random events talking about, at this point, it was about networking and connecting. When I came to the University of Washington, I first came there as a postdoc with the Smith Fellowship, and then I became an assistant professor there. And it's that time in AAAS at UW that I began to build this identity around science dance. So I had been dancing since I was an undergraduate. People in my immediate circle all knew that I did dance. They knew that I had a dance in me that was about my dissertation. So when AAAS had their first Dance Your PhD competition, I must have had a dozen people emailing me saying, Kiki, are you going to enter? And this is really important. I think a really important first signal is that people in my network knew what I wanted to do. And I'm going to come back to this about why you do social media. So they were telling me about this opportunity. I did it. I came in second place, and that gave me the credential to continue to pursue this. We're going to talk about credentials a little bit later. At University of Washington, I co-founded a group that's called Sandbox, the Science Art Collective, to begin building a cohort of folks who are thinking about this and putting things out there. And then I made the switch to Arizona State University specifically because I had reached the limit of what I could do at science dance at the University of Washington in a way that they were willing to embrace. Whereas Arizona State University was a culture and a climate that really embraced science art as a discipline and would work towards my larger career goals. So I wanted to be in that locale. So that's that part of the journey. Some things that I learned along the way that might be beneficial to you all is leverage your base. And what I mean is, whoever you are, wherever you are, you've got folks in your corner. You have a reputation for something. And even if where you want to go, the brand you want to build is 180 from that, still start there, because your reputation, the people who are invested in you, are going to be the fuel that helps you start turning that ship. So for me, I was known as a marine sustainability scientist. And when I got to ASU, I'm like, I'm changing this all up. Every meeting I got invited to, they invited me for my marine science expertise. I showed up there, started talking about science dance. They're like, where's that coming from? Why are you doing it? Felt weird, but I knew that I needed these folks who thought I was a great scientist to also see if that was a great science dance choreographer and why it was important. So I just said it wherever I could, everywhere I could. And eventually people started connecting science dance to my name. They may not understand it. They may not understand why, but when they saw science art, who would they think about? They think about me. That's what I want to do. And you want a multiplicity of voices hyping you. So in this world where everyone's saying, look at me, look at me, look at me, when you have other people saying, look at her, look at her, look at her, you're going to stand out there. Match your path to your goal. So unless what your goal is to be a social media star and make your money from social media is a vehicle for something else. Know what that something else is and weigh those opportunities that you get against the gain that would come from it, because every opportunity has a cost. And you want to weigh, is that move me in the right direction? And does it allow me to make progress? Sometimes the opportunity is just more of the same and you're treading water. And this is important for me, for example, because if you look at my social media, I don't have tons of it because I don't need to own it personally. What I do is I network to organizations who have major social media followings and they feature me. And that's enough for what I want, because what I want is first right of refusal. I want people, when they think of science dance, to think of me and to come to me and present their projects and me to be able to say, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. Because that's my goal and my plate is full. I'm achieving what I need through other people's social media where they have hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of followers, instead of me having to build it and maintain it myself. Opportunities, if they come once, will come again. A lot of times we think, one chance to make it, That's not true. You've earned this. If people are looking at you as a scientist, it's because of what you've done that'll come back again. Make the right choices in the moment for what you can do with your resources. And again, going to this larger goal, make it count extra. So for me, because I am in academia, and academia hasn't figured out quite yet how to give credit for social media, they're trying to figure it out. Anything that I do is going to count double. So for example, instead of growing my own blog, I was a blogger for the New York Times, their Scientists in the Field program. That gave me lots of exposure and that counted. Own your own compelling assets. So you want to make sure that when you're working a photographer, that you own them, that you purchased them completely, or you've licensed them, be very clear about it. Make sure you have those readily available. So if someone reaches out and says, hey, we want to feature you, you have something to give them. It really helps if they're captivating. This picture on the top, people love this picture. Whenever I give this to someone, their engagement skyrockets. I think it's my leg hanging out. They like, just look at my thigh. I don't know what it is, but it works. I think particularly for how I operate, that I'm not producing content on my own about myself all the time, that when I am out there, that it's really polished and that it's fresh. So if you Google me, I want to make sure that you get lots of different images, lots of different videos. And what that's saying is she's out there, she's in multiple places. It's not the same thing with every post that someone else is doing. And then I curate this. So I look and I see what content is out about me on the web. And I'll go, I don't have a lot of pictures of me with water. I don't have a lot of pictures of me with young Black kids. I want to make sure that people understand I'm a mentor, I'm this. And so I'm curating the images I put out with each opportunity I have, building that portfolio about who I am. Did I miss one? No. Okay. And then the last here is back your brand with credentials. And here's the part that's really important for us as Black folks. There's a study that was looking at Black men in corporate America, but I think this applies everywhere. And they found that while white men were promoted from entry-level management to middle management based on their potential, people like, oh, you seem really gregarious, and you really are a go-getter, let me just promote you. Black men were not. They were left there in entry-level management for a very long time. Because when they were promoted on their achievements, what they'd done. That's the bias that we come into. There's a flip side of that study, which I won't talk about, that's actually kind of encouraging, but that's the reality. The other reality is haters are going to look for technicalities to disqualify you. If someone has an issue with you as a Black person being in a leadership role, being in a visible role, they will try to tear you down. And the easiest thing they can come for is, do you have the credentials to back up your brand? So what does that mean? That means that you want to be in the currency of the realm. Whatever realm you're working with, whatever audience, what they care about, make sure you're accruing that as well as putting your name out there. Me doing science art in academia in a place that really didn't value that other than like some random media attention. When I got the AAAS second place in the Dance Your PhD competition, suddenly it was like a gold star. They're like, okay, not all the faculty members can do that, but she can do that because she won this prestigious award from a prestigious organization. Experience and leadership. When I moved to Arizona, I was like, okay, I need to build my rep as an artist because I need to have the ground roots in the community. So I started a Brazilian Zouk dance school with my dance partner to continue to build that credibility as me as an artist, in addition to doing the science art. Whatever that may be, I want to make sure that I had the goods to back it up. So those are my things that I have to share with you all today. Look forward to questions at the end, and I'll hand the baton back.
Thank you so much, Kiki. That was amazing. Next up, we have Alana discussing her journey.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's been a really wild ride coming to know who I am and making that available to other people. Let me share my screen here. Great. Everyone can see that okay? Solid. Okay. So hi, I'm Alana Bellicott. I'm a marine ecologist and science communicator. And I wear many hats. My 9 to 5, I'm the coral restoration specialist at Coral Vita, the world's first land-based commercial coral farm for the restoration of reefs. My job is separated into thirds. 2/3 of it is quite technical, a lot of diving and coral husbandry and working on the systems that actually keep our animals alive, as well as education and outreach, my favorite. I am a brand ambassador and affiliated with many amazing brands like Patty. I'm a scuba instructor, Fourth Element, an amazing dive brand with a lot of their products being sustainable. Sunto is my most recent collaboration with Dive Watches and helping them figure out how divers can become citizen scientists through having great tools at their hand. Recently, I've become an underwater model. I'm an on-screen expert, most recently in episodes of Shark Week, but most notably in Enslaved, a 6-part documentary featuring Afua Hirsch and Samuel Jackson that looks into the Atlantic slave trade, but through the lens of investigating and mapping and preserving shipwrecks that were associated with that slave trade through the amazing organization Diving with a Purpose. And then lastly, I'm an ocean advocate. I am all about protecting our ocean, protecting it for our use and for the use of communities, especially to coastal peoples around the world, while also making knowledge about the ocean more accessible to those who may not have it. But with that, I wouldn't say that my following or my notoriety on social media was intentional. And I also wouldn't say it also kind of just happened. There was a tiny bit of luck, but a whole lot of work and a lot of steps that kind of fell into place or that I worked on in order to become this person. And I'd love to share a few of the tips that I have. So firstly, okay, you want to brand yourself. You want to brand yourself. And so you have to start on the inside and you have to ask yourself a lot of valuable questions. And these questions are actually quite hard. And it took me a little while to really notice that I had to answer these questions for myself. It took several interviews asking me the same question. Tell us your name and who you are. And it sounds really simple, but it can get kind of complicated if you're not quite sure. And it's really valuable if you're creating a brand to really know who you are. So asking yourself, who you are, what your core values are. What do you want to put into this world? What kind of change do you want to make? Like, what person do you want to be for the audience that you want to connect to, and who is that audience? And then lastly, an important question is, do you want to take on this responsibility? I would love to say that, no, I will say that none of us are obligated to represent our intersectionality, to represent our background, to become mouthpieces for, the color of our skin, or for the brand, or for our field of study. We're not obligated to do that. It's a choice that you want to make. And therefore it becomes a responsibility, because you're putting yourself in that space. There are going to be people looking at you as an example. And so you really want to think about, is this what I would like to do? How much of my personal life do I want to make accessible to the public? Then once you've answered all those really hard questions, you have to get to work. Networking is super important and also takes a lot of work. I know millennials, especially Gen Z, we are allergic to cold calls. Even though they're hard, cold calls can produce some amazing opportunities for you. So start with, who are you inspired by? Is there a lecturer, a teacher? I'm inspired by Danny Washington, and I felt like maybe she would never answer my message if I reached out to her. But shoots, I don't even remember how we got connected, but we did, and I was losing my mind. But it was an amazing connection that I made by not being afraid and just reaching out. I know for me, and Danny, I'm sure you can speak for yourself, we have message requests up the wazoo on our Instagram. But those who are genuinely interested in helping others, even though it may take us some time, we will get to you and we will answer your questions. Just don't let that discourage you from reaching out to someone who you find inspiring. Then kind of tying in with knowing your audience, who are your people? So my people are kind of teenagers to people who are maybe a little bit older than 45. After that, they're not quite on Instagram or not quite into social media, but their grandchildren or their niece or whatever would kind of show them who I am on TV. My people are nerdy, into the ocean, may not get the chance to have access to the ocean, but they're super fired up. Maybe they enjoy my hair or my quirky personality. So who are your people? And then, are you ready for yeses? So I am this really odd combination of being afraid of success and also being afraid of failure. And so when someone tells you yes, are you ready for that yes? Do you have a portfolio that you can give to this person, just like how Dr. Kiki Jenkins mentioned? Are you ready to give them your CV, your resume? What does that look like? What media do you have of you on the internet? When people Google you, what are they going to find? And who have you reached out to already? And I already mentioned that we're super allergic to cold calls, but trust me, they can be really, really rewarding when someone answers your cold call and they give you a yes. Okay, so you've got your audience. So your audience is who you're talking to and what language is appropriate. I mentioned my main audience is kind of teenagers to middle-aged women. Most of my followers are women. About 54% of my followers are women. And so my language is catered to them and that group. I believe in communication. We need to meet people where they're at in order for people to understand a really difficult concept like maybe commensalism or mutualism, symbiotic relationships. What language do I choose? What metaphors or what scenarios can people relate to when I'm talking about something complicated like that? What levels of prior knowledge do you have, or what levels of prior knowledge does your audience have? Your tone is also super important. And then remembering to kind of cut out the extra details and stick to just essential information when you're delivering a good story. Things to say yes to. Number one, be authentic. This is your social media channel. This is your brand. This is your personality. Only take on things that align with your ethos, that align to those core values that you figured out early on in our presentation. Say yes to virtual talks and lessons. It's all about showing up and being present and being open to talking to almost every and anyone. At least that's my brand. You can cater your brand to your audience and who you wish to speak to. But I try my best to say yes to as many groups who want to learn about the ocean as possible. I cannot stress enough, collaborate versus compete. Specifically, my association with GoPro and being sponsored by GoPro came through someone who wanted to collaborate with me as opposed to wanting to compete with me. Though we share different niches, our paths can cross quite often. But instead of saying, oh, I don't really want to share these brands with this person, or, I work way harder than this person, she doesn't deserve it. This person called me up and is like, hey, I really want to see you win. I want you to share some of this bread. I want you to share some of these successes and these opportunities. Come with me. And I showed up. I said yes. And because I was authentic and myself, it happened. And an amazing opportunity presented itself, and I took it. Supplemental courses. Take a course in design, public speaking, video editing, super valuable to supplementing your social media channel or your brand as a whole, like picking colors and, the type of media that you want to put out into the world. And then a little bit of investing in yourself, which, depending on what you want to show, cameras, mics, software, asking people questions, you do have to do just a little bit of investing in your craft. The power of no. Oh my goodness. So saying no to brands, people, or organizations that do not align with your core values. I recently had the opportunity to become part of this big network show, and it was super tempting for that to be not necessarily my start, but like another push of my brand. But I really had a thought about it, and it did not align with who I was. It's not who I wanted to put out into the world. And honestly, I probably would have lost a little bit of credibility. And it is so difficult to regain credibility, especially as a Black person in science, and especially as a woman in science. So it was not worth it. It was not going to fill my cup. And it was less than what I was worth. It was less than what I was worth. I've been approached by person saying, hey, we want you to be a brand ambassador. Okay, well, I'd love it if you would pay me for my time. Oh, we thought you would be okay with just exposure. It's going to be great. Honestly, depending on the brand, you can make that choice, but we have the power to change the status quo. Too often are we offered exposure as an exchange for our services, for our knowledge that we've paid money to have, that we've had experiences to know what it is we know. We deserve to be compensated in the way that we want to be compensated. And so hold on to that and don't let go. Burnout. Say no to burnout. When you are tired, say no. When it does not align with what you are trying to accomplish, say no. When it's time to prioritize yourself, do some self-care, hang out with your family, say no. And definitely do your best to unfollow accounts that only make you compare yourself to others. You are the brand, not them. And then lastly, be excited for feedback. So most platforms, you can check your insights and see who is looking at your stuff. How well did this reel do? What could I change? Did I use a popular sound? Algorithms change all the time. But at the end of the day, as long as you are being authentic, there are ways to kind of cheat the system and figure out methods to really push your branding. You can practice with friends. Use a friend as a sounding board. I reach out to several people, including Danny, be like, I have this opportunity. What do you think about that? You think that's going to match me? And she'd be like, no, girl, that's not for you. Or yes, I know somebody. Let me put you in touch. Use your friends, use your network, and practice. I'm particularly poor at practicing, but it's something that I'm working on. Practice speaking to other people, practice your presentations, go through it with your mom, your parents. Sometimes I practice with my dog, but he's not so great at feedback, but practicing will make it permanent. But with feedback, that permanency will only get better and better. And then be that person. So there's that person that you see online or that you see on social media, like, oh my God, her stuff is amazing. It's tight. I want to be her. But you can't be her and you can't be him. You can only be you because it's your brand. So be that person, but make it you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Alana. That was great. And I want to speak to our audience. If there are any questions, there'll be a time for question and answer at the end. But next up, we have Danny.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking time to be here on this on the Zoom. I know you could be 5 million other places today. It's a Sunday, so thank you for your time. Also, thank you, Dr. Jenkins, and thank you, Alana, for your wonderful presentations. It's an honor to share space with you. So I've got a quick presentation here that I'd like to share, just dovetailing on what Alana and Kiki mentioned. So let's see here. Pull it up. Play. All right, here we go. So greetings from New York. I'm currently up here. I was here for Thanksgiving with my family, so it's nice and chilly outside. A little jealous. Alana's down in the Bahamas right now, enjoying the island school. But anyway, my name is Danny, and I'm really glad to be here. I consider myself an ocean advocate, also a television host. I've been doing that for about nearly 15 years, and I work in science communications. So I graduated from the University of Miami back in 2008 with a Bachelor of Science degree in marine science and biology. And since that time, I pursued a full-time career in science communications. I've worked with many different networks over the years, but that didn't just come out of the blue. It was a concerted idea that came to me after undergrad, realizing that I wanted to see, number one, more women, but also more importantly, more Black women in the science space in a visible way, where the question that people would ask me constantly while I was studying was, well, I've never seen Black people in marine science, and that needed to change. And so that really became the goal. And it's so beautiful to be a part of BIMS now and to see organizations like BIMS thriving, where we're bringing together our community of Black marine scientists and Black scientists in general around the world. So I wanted to share this quick concept that I hope many of you have seen, maybe you haven't, but it's a Japanese concept called ikigai. And it's really the meaning, a reason for being. That's the meaning of it. And it goes back far in history, but it's something that I learned maybe 5 years ago, that this beautiful Venn diagrams that we all love, shows where all these different parts of your life can come together. And I think this is what really dovetails on what was said previously, where you can think about your passion, your mission, and your profession and your vocation, and how do all of those things coincide? Because they don't have to be things that are separated. They can all come together. But there are sweet spots with this concept where you can see where all four of those elements of your life meet. And it's serving in different ways, whether it's you making a living, following your passion, really delivering on the mission that you set out to do in the world. And what are you doing professionally to make that happen? And I think what's important here is to recognize that there are nuts and bolts to this process as well. After you've done that, that deep thinking about what your purpose is, what are you trying to achieve? These are questions you need to ask yourself after the fact if you want to build a real brand online. And I recognized back in 2010 that it was important to have a brand because you want to be memorable. You want people to see what you're doing in the world, to honor it, to get excited about it, and to remember it. And that's where the power of a brand comes in. Now, let me go back to play. So these are just a few nuts and bolts questions that you can think about. If you want to screenshot this worksheet, that's great. The first is to think about the words that describe your brand. What are simple ideas, simple phrases, or just singular words that describe you and what you're doing? And then also ask yourself, what's your ultimate intention? Why are you doing this? What's the point? And then beyond that, from the aesthetic side of things, you want to make sure to have your colors aligned. I think Alana mentioned something about this, but it's really a thoughtful process where what emotions do these colors evoke? So for me personally, if you saw my website screenshot previously, blue, turquoise, magenta, yellow. Those are the colors that I chose, and I chose them on purpose. The blue represents the ocean. The magenta represents the heart and passion that I put into my work. And the yellow, it basically reminds me of just sunshine and knowing that your message, your your purpose in the whole world. I mean, you can share that with people through light. And that's, I know it's a bit woo-woo, but honestly, that taking the time to think about that really helps my brand speak to me as well, and knowing that it's a reflection of who I am. Other questions you might want to ask yourself are, well, what social media platforms do I want to be on? You don't have to be on all of them. You can choose just one, or you can choose all, but it just depends on the amount of work and effort that you'd like to put into each. Also, do you have promotional materials? Do you have a bio that you formatted? So let's say you get invited to do a speaking engagement. Are you prepared with something that you can quickly send off? Is this bio available online if someone were to Google you? Also, do you have a media card? This is a great tool that you can send to folks who may be interested in having you be a part of their event. If you're into television and want to host content, well, they need to know more about you and what your experience. And that's also where a media kit comes in, where you can give a bit more of an elaborate answer on your experience. Headshots, very important. Ask a friend who has a good, smartphone, or maybe they have a DSLR, to go out with you one day for a couple of hours and take some good shots of you in your element. Maybe that's while you're working, or maybe it's just you having fun in a casual setting. These photos are very, very important when you want to convey a message without having to say anything, and allowing people to understand a little bit about you and what you have to offer through visuals. And then finally, a rate card is something that's very interesting as well. Like Alana mentioned about social media collaborations, you don't want to do free stuff. Like there may be a few instances where opportunities arise where it makes sense, but majority of the time you want to focus on how can you be compensated for your time, your effort, and your image on whatever platform it's on. So a rate card helps you get away from that awkward conversation via email of how much you want to charge. You can just send them a rate card and say, these are my rates, take it or leave it. And if they say no, you move on. If they say yes, great, then you get what you need. So to give you a bit of a well-rounded perspective of what opportunities can arise if you work on your brand and you build a brand that's recognizable and memorable, there are so many lanes that you could take your career on while conducting your science, while conducting your research, or running a business. These are all pathways that can leverage your knowledge and your contribution. So I wanted to kick it off with YouTube, because YouTube is really the catalyst that helped create my career from the very beginning. So like I mentioned, in 2008, I graduated from undergrad. And a few months later, I started my YouTube channel because I created a video for a contest. And that was part of the requirement to enter. You have to make a video. Made a video about my passion for the ocean, had a couple of my little cousins come with me to the beach, and we made a video about plastic pollution. That video ended up winning this contest, and the contest gave me $10,000 to start whatever project I wanted to start. That's where Big Blue and You came from. That very same video, the one video I had on my YouTube channel, was seen by a gentleman who happened to be starting a team of science filmmakers who were hosting science videos for kids for textbooks. And so this educational platform opportunity came about because of YouTube. And whether it's informal education or via book or virtual, so many opportunities. This was the team. And from that point forward, nearly 3 months after graduating, I worked with this team for 3 years, and we made over 200 science videos for kids that are in certain classrooms even to this day. The next pathway that you could possibly follow as well would be network television. And I think now, as we live in this digital streaming age, we have a lot more options, more than just the few channels that existed, 20 years ago. But network television still has a viable platform and a big viewership. So you could think about possibilities in hosting or being a science commentator on certain series. There's also social media, of course, as we all know. Every platform that you choose to take part in, it has a different audience. And the beautiful thing is that it allows you to analyze who's watching your content as well, which is great, because now you know who your audience is, who you want to speak to, and who really is receiving the information and the content that you're creating. But these platforms also have other opportunities that are more on a level where you can create long-standing content that maybe is not produced by you alone. So this example right here was a show that I participated in called Science the Shit Out of It on Facebook Watch. And it was a collab between myself and a comedian from New York, Christina Hutchinson. And we made 10 episodes talking about random questions that people ask on Google and trying to give a scientific answer to each of those questions. There's also the nonprofit sector, which is a viable sector that you can tap into. So with nonprofits, of course, certain nonprofits have budgets for marketing, for media, for content, and perhaps your role as a scientist could be contributing in that capacity, helping create content for them. And here's a quick example from the Heal the Bay Aquarium in LA. They started a series where we had a chance to work on just a group of videos, short videos that were talking about local issues in the Santa Monica Bay area. And that was so much fun because I got to work with naturalists and the scientists that were at the aquarium to talk about these different topics. There are also live events that you can tap into as well with your expertise, or you can bring your brand to a live stage. There are events that happen like Planet Home, which happened a couple of years ago in San Francisco. There's also online virtual events that are live similar to this, like the Ocean Race Summits, which are broadcasted around the world for an international audience. These events are happening every day, all the time, everywhere. It's just a matter of you finding which opportunity and which event is the best fit for you. Now, again, for this type of thing, you have to be, you have to get well-versed in being in front of a live audience. I mean, that is probably one of the most nerve-wracking things that people think about when it comes to public speaking, but the more that you practice, the better you'll be, and just keep doing it over and over and over again. And then almost done here, podcasts, another great platform for you to leverage your brand. If you don't want to be on camera, if you don't want to be in front of a live audience, podcasts are just a great option, and they're not going anywhere, right? So you could either start it easily at home, or you could work with a podcasting production company, which they exist all over the place. And you can share your knowledge. And then finally, books. Books, another great option for you to choose to create a brand that people believe in and want to connect with. And I think that publishing with a publisher or self-publishing are both two viable options. And science content is needed now more than ever. And so recently working on this book, Bold Women in Science, well, this book is a book that I wish I'd had myself when I was a child. And having the opportunity to create something like this and put it out in the world and hopefully have it out there for as long as possible, well, that's the most exciting part. You never know who's going to grab this book and read it. And so just to add a little bit of fun before I finish up, I wanted to add this quick trivia question. And the first person to answer it in the chat, I will send a copy of the book to. She was the first African-American woman to travel to space. Choose 4 of the options. Are you ready? Anybody ready? And let's see. Got anyone in the chat? Oh, I see answers coming in. Okay, I'll go to the answer slide. Here we go. Mae Jemison. Awesome. Okay, who won here? Let's see. Hey, all right. I see Shakira, I believe, is the first one to answer. See, very good. Hey. Thank you very much. Awesome. Okay, so last thing before we go on to questions, I just wanted to share the last few pathways that could be a possibility for you in your branding journey. Now, you can either go into science art, broadcast news. We're seeing a lot of different broadcast news platforms that want experts that can comment on live current events. There's op-ed writing, there's blogging, and then finally there's film and TV consulting, where there are large-scale theatrical films or television shows that need science experts to consult with them in order to make sure that at least part of the story or all of the story is correct and scientifically accurate. So these are all opportunities that you could choose just by creating a brand as a scientist. And I mean, like I said in the beginning of the presentation, the possibilities are endless. It's about choosing what you like to do, what suits your personality the best, and what gifts you can actually put forward and utilize to make these pathways happen. So I get really excited and hyped up whenever I start talking about this stuff, because I know that the more people we have like us in this space, the better off the world will be. So I hope that everyone watching today feels inspired by everything that we have talked about today, and hopefully gives you a little bit more motivation to get started. It's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes time. As you've heard from all of us, we've all put in over a decade of work into building our own brands. So be patient with yourself and just keep pushing forward. And that's all I got.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah. What an awesome group of panelists coming from such diverse perspectives. And, you know, Dr. Kiki Jenkins discussing how to leverage your base and captivate an audience, and Alana Velcott talking about how to build your foundation when you're creating a brand. And Danny, you wrapping it up and talking about the nuts and bolts of creating platforms and sharing your content. And so all of this was such great information, and I'm sure the audience thinks so as well. So thank you so much for your time. And we have a few questions in the chat to wrap up. First, Riley Cook wrote, any guidance for would-be entrepreneurs, examples, ocean kelp farmers, partnering with marine scientists / brands to spread awareness of their products and respective impacts, values, etc. And any one of you guys can answer.
I'll jump in with that one. So one of my really good colleagues, Hoyt Peckham, is a master storyteller of sustainability fishery solutions that he's come up with. And he can compel people, he can compel funders. Because of him, I literally walked around Julia Walton's house because he has these abilities to tell a story. But I would always say to him, show me the goods, like show me more than just this compelling story. What do you have to back it up? Which gets back to what the question was asking about these positive benefits. And with Hoyt, we partnered and brought together specialists from around the world to look into the claims he was making. We did a workshop. And so that workshop both created a community of people who cared about these things. So you're getting to build a base, but we were also bringing together evidence that went out to go back to their community, something to take to their funders and give that. But then we also had something that created a critical mass that suddenly we could apply for funds from the FAO. And the FAO is huge for these types of things. We got funded as a positive solution for small scale fishery sustainability, because we brought all the stories together and then we did a critical analysis of it and it amplified for everyone. So I think that's the way to do it. Kennedy grants are a nice way to motivate folks to come together to start building that evidence base along with compelling stories.
I'd add on to that, just to mention and shout out a group that I really love, Sea Trees. They're based in California and they worked on several different kelp programs, but they're also working on all types of blue carbon projects. But their storytelling, as Dr. Jenkins mentioned, that it's compelling, but it's also science-based, and they are partnered with a local nonprofit in California, the Bay Foundation, who handles the research portion of things and the restoration itself. But Sea Trees continues to leverage their audience and their group of people around the world that support the work to continue to restore the ecosystem. So there's a lot of synergy there. And I think out of many of the organizations I've seen working in this sector, I think they've done the best job, one of the best jobs of telling that story and bringing together supporters. So definitely worthwhile checking them out.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jenkins and Danny. We have another question in the chat from Shakira Fleming. It says, to establish a brand for choosing specific colors, influences, etc., do you have to be approved through creating a marine science brand or by corporate and business companies? How exactly does this work?
I think I'd like to know, being approved, you mean if you're working for a marine science brand or corporation? Is that the context of the question? Because if you're creating your own personal brand, it's really just about choosing whatever you want, that you don't really need approval from anybody. It just depends on what works for you. Yeah. But if you are working for a group and you are representing a company, then it would probably be wise to let them know, or to just at least share what you've got. But I think when it comes to a personal brand, it's really up to you. And if you don't own your own name domain yet, please do it. We don't want anyone else to buy your name. You should own that URL. It'll cost you like $15 on GoDaddy or whatever, domain purchasing site you choose. get it done and have that so that no one else can own that that domain and own your content. So yeah, that would be my answer. Alana, Dr. Jenkins, what do you think?
So having a job, having a job at Coral Vita, but then also being Alana Velicott, the kind of TV personality, ocean advocate, there is a line where sometimes it can be, we would like to host Alana Velicott, the personality, or Alana Velicott, the ocean advocate, but I would love it if you could take us on a tour of the coral farm. I have to, I did have a meeting with the co-founders of Coral Vita. And firstly, they are extremely supportive of all of the extra things that I do that may or even may not be related directly to Coral Vita. But we did have a conversation as to what needs to happen if a group is interested in my work or our work at Coral Vita. And when Coral Vita isn't involved, what does that look like and how we can arrange maybe time off, 6 days, vacation time. But anytime I get something that's hitting a little bit close to what we all do as Coral Vita, I definitely have a meeting with my boss and I let them know, hey, this is happening. I'd love to bring you into the picture. Or GoPro or Fourth Element would love some pictures taken. Can we work that into our schedule? Maybe we can all collaborate. But definitely talking with your supervisors and how you can incorporate your personality with your work and what that looks like.
Thank you so much for your responses. They're very insightful and kind of, understanding the line of intersectional identities when you're branding yourself. Kind of adding on to the question, I would like to ask if you have a variety of identities that shape your brand, do you need to focus on like one or two interests so that people aren't confused for what you stand for? Or is it okay to have so many intersectional identities displayed in your branding?
I guess I can start. You are who you are. And so all of the aspects of who you are should shine through in your social media and your people will find you. But you can tailor who you are to the audience that you'd like to attract. I do too many things, in my opinion, but I try to boil it down to at least 3 pillars: science, ocean advocacy, and adventure, playtime, my life as this crazy person who I am. And I try to stick with those things and I try my best to be consistent. So it can be 5 different aspects to who you are, but as long as you're consistent and that's your message, your people will find you, or you will tailor your media to the audience that you want to attract. What you think, Danny?
No, I completely agree. Yeah, we're all multifaceted, intersectional beings that have many different elements to our lives. And so being intentional about what you choose to show the world is smart. Like, think about what is it that you will serve your purpose in the biggest way, and focusing on that. And then when it comes to social media, remember that you're always in full control. You are the one with the steering wheel with social media. It is simply a vehicle, as Dr. Jenkins mentioned. Use it to its best and biggest capacity. Like, where do you want your message to be seen? And how do you want the world to see you? I think that visuals will always be the best, the best tool to utilize. So, I mean, if you can even using photos, let's say on LinkedIn, which is really blowing up right now as a viable social networking platform, not just to show your resume. There are opportunities there that you can showcase your skills in that regard. And then perhaps on your Instagram, you want to focus more on the fun side of things that you do in your daily life, your lifestyle. These are all choices and there are many different options. So just don't overdo it with making people confused about who you are. Like Alana said, pick 3 things, start there, that you want to showcase in the parts of yourself that you want to share, and then see what sticks and see what your audience really enjoys, learning about you.
And if I can just add to that, I think everything that Alana and Danny have said is spot on for when you're starting. But once you have a brand, you can always grow the brand. If you have actual like brands, companies, Unilever has their fingers in everything. If you think of Oprah Winfrey, when she first started, she was here in Baltimore, local news broadcaster. Now she runs a magazine, a network. She's all these things because she's had time. So I think once you've established those three things, you can keep growing. So for me, I have my 5-year plan. And I know kind of what's the thing that I'm pushing on right now. And because I'm pushing on that, that's where I'm going to put my energy. But all those other things, they're part of me, and that's known and that's out there. And it takes a little bit of care and feeding, but it's not the same thing as growing. And I don't have to lose them. I don't have to lose my marine science identity. I don't have to lose my DEI identity. I don't have to lose any of those things while I'm pushing forward with science art. And I can, throughout my career with time, grow into a cornucopia of brands and identities with the time, knowing that you won't lose base if you feed it just enough.
That's a great point. And I'd love to add on to the fact that if you want to show all these identities, which you should, and all these parts of you and build on it, your website is so essential. Like, I can't emphasize this enough. You need to have a website with your name or your nickname, whatever it is, whatever, title you prefer. Please, please, please build a website, because it's weird to think about, but honestly, like, these social media platforms, one day could be here and the next day can be gone, right? We're looking at that situation right now with Twitter. Who knows what's going to happen with Twitter? And if you've built your entire following on one specific platform, you're leaving all of your eggs in one basket. But if you have a website where you can continually add on, showcase, put together content that is in one place as a hub, that's really, really going to make your brand strong. And on top of that, it's going to continue to support your SEO, your search engine optimization. If you have a website already, you need to keep Google searching yourself and asking friends to Google search you and see where your website lands. Is it coming up first? Is it coming up 10th? These are important questions. What do you want people to see first when they ask about you or think about you or are curious about your work? You want them to see the content that you've created for yourself. And the best place to do that and showcase that is your website.
Thank you so much, everybody, for your answers to all of the questions. I think that it's a very complex journey of branding yourself, and you guys have all gone through this journey beautifully and successfully, and we are so grateful to have you here today to share that with us and all of the BIMS members that are here. That is all the time that we have for questions. If anybody has any additional questions that they would like to ask, we are going to drop the contact information for our speakers below, and then we're going to have a little segment at the end for it as well. But yes, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any other questions, please go to their socials or their websites. I'm going to share my screen right now so that you guys can take a screenshot of their information.
Yep. And before we go, I also would love to echo what Jada said. This was an amazing, amazing workshop. I'm going to go on GoDaddy right now and buy my domain or my website right now. But yeah, if the audience enjoyed this, and this is the kickoff of BIMS Week, we're really excited. Our next event is a BIMS Read event with our founder, Dr. T, sitting down in a discussion with Rue Mapp, the founder of Outdoor Afro. And this is in 15 minutes. So stay tuned. And we're really excited about this event.
Thank you, everybody. It was great to see you all. Great to share space. And shout out to DeMarcus and Vita online. It's great to see you all here in the room.
Great to see you too, Danny.
All right. Thank you all so much. And we'll see you in 15 minutes for the BIMS Read event.
All right. Thank you.